back here, by the way, and let's see how the night goes. Share the broadcast, like it, invite your friends, invite your not so friendly friends, tell them to join us again, just for catch up to what is currently going on in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria. So, in the last few days, since when the news that the National Assembly of Nigeria, led by Akpabiole, have approved an amendment to supposed 2022 Electoral Act. This is going to be the framework of how their 2027 will be conducted. So there is this by party sort of like an agreement that Nigeria should at this time include the mandatory e-transmission, electronic transmission of election results. That is a real-time transmission. But there are those whose arguments was that there are about 9 states in Nigeria, especially in northern part of Nigeria, battling insecurity. Therefore, the unreliability of the network providers in Nigeria, the collapsing national grid, as well as this insecurity, will deny these people from these 9 states in Nigeria from receiving or uploading, or from uploading their own live results. That's the argument of the Akpabioles and gang. But those who are pushing for this believes that you can't be investing these hundreds of billions of naira in your elections, right? And yet, meanwhile, like investing billions in what you proclaim to be technological sort of like inclusion in your elections, right? And then on the other hand, you are pretty much okay with the archaic way of doing it by giving excuses why technology can work all over the country. The blah, the blah. So at this loggerhead also came an information that some of the senators themselves actually agreed that the mandatory lifetime election results, uploading is what they agreed on until Akpabiole and gang changed what they agreed to transmit to transfer, something that is just a pretty much intentional legal lacuna they are putting inside their electoral act, and they know what they are doing. So a lot of people have been reacting online. Not much offline is pretty much known, but however, people started calling that, listen, if you want to participate in the 2027 charade, it is ideal to understand that it is not during the election day, that they rig your elections. The rigging begins from processes like this, including the laws that are supposed to guide the election conduct, as well as the pre, during, and post-election period. So in all of this, it seemed that the opposition, which is pretty much like almost like divided as well in this sense, I've not seen any kind of like unity in that regard. Okay, the opposition are trying to mount pressure on the National Assembly, where they believe before the final bill or the final whatever comes out, right, it should reflect the general wish of the people. Now, general wish of the people is also divided. For those who are supporting the government, they believe that if the law that guides their next election is properly put in place, it can probably, to some extent, right, safeguard the credibility of that election. So, and if that should be the case, APC, Ekbekekbe, stands no chance of surviving, not even Tinubu, because without this setup, this rigging arrangements, right, there stands no chance of any free and fair election. While their supporters, and on the other hand, believes that if the argument is that an electoral act that must be universal, which means it must be something that every part of the country must use. And if this technology is not applicable to all the rest of the country, so therefore, they are okay with what Tinubu and gang wants to do. Like I said, complicated, but the conversation is kind of like heated. So today, in Abuja, before today, the opposition decided to organize, I would say ADC this time, especially the Obedient and others, decided to protest against passing any bill that does not reflect the general yearnings. And in that regard, we thought there should be an opportunity for this opposition to all come together in unison, mobilize their own elected officials, as well as those who are parading themselves as your would-be 2027 saviors, Peter Obi, Atiku, Amechi, El Rufai, Aregbe Mugubaba, Kabiru, and the rest of them like that, and even Keneri Dino. You would expect them to be at the forefront, to use this opportunity to actually say, if 2027 election is going to be conducted, this is actually how it should be in that regard, but no. But nevertheless, Peter Obi showed up when the people gathered at the National Assembly today. Unfortunately, even though the last time the National Assembly was in session, where they purportedly passed this controversial amendment, right? The Senate adjourned their reconvening time to the 25th of February, which means they were not expected back for the next 2 weeks. However, while Akpabio said they cannot be intimidated, anybody who feels like they have not done the right thing should go and run for office and contest to be lawmakers just this past weekend, right? After that speech, the announcement now came that there will be an emergency sitting where all the senators would have to please come back on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, okay, to deliberate on this, their, what do you call it, electoral act. But you know where this is headed, Abby? I won't jump the gun. So in the next few minutes, and possibly hour, I will take you through the events that is currently shaping up what their 2027 is likely going to be like. So sit back, like I said before, after reading caption and all that, liking it. You've liked the broadcast, have you? Like it, and then share it. Tag your friends, tell them to join us, okay? And let's go to Abuja, where it all happened today. And from what I have heard from the pillars, this could be the start of what may be a week-long kind of like a stakeout. But today in Abuja, we will start with that. Here, when Peter Obi arrived at the gathering, I believe, from the start. Let's start with this.
Obi is here live and direct. Live and direct. They must give us real-time results. They must give us real-time results.
danger was clear. We have suffered the danger. That's what we have suffered before. We don't want any glitch again. Yes, glitch is finished. We want things to come back to glitch. Yes. No more glitch. No more glitch.
Right? Like I said, it would have been an opportunity for Atiku and others in the ADC and even other opposition, okay, to unite and say, no, this is not going to happen this time around. But let me take you down memory lane before we continue with what's going on in Abuja and why sometimes it is, in the long run, a waste of time. Yeah, the whole election thing is a waste of time, unfortunately, but I'll tell you. In 2018, when Momodu Yakubu was the INEC chairman, they said they had this new technology which would help INEC to document the election results in what they then referred to as server, INEC server. It made no sense to me, but it was a very popular thing then, INEC server, because what that meant was that even if they falsify election results, with the real result in the INEC server accessible by all, especially the opposition that may be challenging the election results, it will be made readily available. Then they conducted the election. Boguari lost. Atiku and Obi actually won that election. It was such a pure rigging that the famous argument in their court at the time was whether there was an existence of any server, INEC server, INEC server. There were videos, there were interviews where Mahmoud Yakubu spoke about this server. But when INEC lawyers appeared before the Supreme Court in 2019, between the case between Bokwari and Atiku, INEC denied any existence of server, and that collapsed the case of the opposition because they built their case on the fact that INEC would be compelled to release the original details of the election, but they said it doesn't exist. 65 billion naira technology called the server does not exist. And they told them at the Supreme Court. That was the end. In 2023, prior to 2023, they had an electoral act like this one, which then was that they were introducing another technology. And this time around, this technology is going to be live transmission of election results across the country. So in 2022, they tried it in Ekiti, tried it in Osun, and it worked. I mean, it worked. People could see the live result of the elections. So all those ballot stuffing, falsification of results was so minimized. INEC used that to campaign all over Nigeria in 2022. The 2023 elections, so bang, it cannot be rigged. 117 billion naira was committed to that technology, IREF, BVAS. Then on the day of elections, they were conducting presidential election, National Assembly election, which is the Senate and the reps. And guess what? The IREF, the BVAS, work perfectly well. Like it worked, worked there perfectly well in more than 98% of the country. There was no issue with the result of the House of Reps, the Senate, across the country on the day of the election until around 1 p.m. in the afternoon, when the IRF for the presidential election suddenly shut down. Immediately, they started cooking different propaganda about how some people are trying to hack the website, how some blah. But they were not hacking the National Assembly. They were hacking presidential. That was it. 117 billion naira project gone. And when they asked the INEC in court, why did you use that technology? They said, well, it was optional. We're not really using it. It wasn't really important. What? And guess what? The opposition built their cases on the shutting down of the IRF, asking INEC to present the original results that they announced. Here you get. But guess what? INEC didn't have to prove anything. They just sorry about that. They just denied and denied as much as possible, right? And then the Supreme Court ruled that the 117 billion naira technology, IREF, BIVAS, was unconstitutional. Really? It was unconstitutional. INEC has the discretion. Where did you see that? They said, well, it's part of that section, so and so in the Electoral Act. And everybody ready was like, oh, that's true. So it is INEC that can decide the mode of conducting the election or the style or whatever. Okay, we don't want that anymore. We want you to put it in the law. Okay, that INEC has no discretion. This is what and how the election must be conducted. Simple. And they said, no, that one is not going to work. Like Akpabio argued.
Use of electronic transmission, even if it's transfer. But real time means that in over 9 states, where networks are not working because of insecurity, there will be no election result. And nationally means that if the national grid should collapse and no network is working, no election result will be valid. But you see them talking. We even have a young man from Akwa Ibom who is, I think, publicity secretary in one of the parties. You hear him talking, you would think he's Senator Effiong Bob, who has seen it all. He doesn't know anything about lawmaking. And he will talk and talk and talk. But what can I say? I can't answer. The Senate does not conduct elections. We don't deploy technology. We only make laws. INEC must apply the law. The timing, scope, and modalities rest with INEC, acting within the framework of the law enacted by Parliament and interpreted by the Supreme Court, as the Supreme Court had interpreted about this electronic transmission. People should go and read these things. We insist now and always that the electoral reforms must be anchored in law, guided by capacity secured against abuse, and applied uniformly across the nation. Technology, this same electoral act that we are saying electronic transfer or not, or whether it was by transfer of votes from one unit to the other, whether they had light or not, despite insecurity, they won in large numbers, thousands and thousands of votes. In fact, in one particular region, the presidential candidate won the 5 states in his region. He won all. He even incurred into South and took Delta. He went into Lagos and took, with the same act that we are talking about. Maybe it's even better that we leave the act so that they will see that no matter how you jump from here and there, you will still lose. May God bless Nigeria in Jesus' name. Thank you. And I want to recommend this book to all legislators and to say that the governor.
So Akpabio's argument is that it is the same 2022 Act where, whether it was transfer, whether it was a transmittal, that gave the opposition like Peter Obi the opportunity to be able to win in the East and also win in Lagos and even win some seats in the opposition. That is like a consolation to say, well, you won some now. So why do you want us to change it? We are not the ones conducting elections. That is another part we are going to get to, because even if all of these things is finally put in the old Electoral Act, Kolu won't sign it. And because of the time, they will end up having to say they should just go and use the 2022 like that. And the mediocrity that you have seen these guys displayed in the last years, right? Which is mostly intentional, by the way. They intentionally sabotage the system with an open mediocrity, inefficiency.